Jane didn't say anything when she came back to the table.
No.
Yeah, because she saw you standing there.
Yeah.
So,
I bumped into one guy I played tennis with in the street when I'd gone in to check, and that was the first time, I think, of any of the nights that I'd been going up and down that I saw anyone else, really. 5, 6 nights, and it was incredibly quiet.
They spoke for a few minutes. At this time, around 9:15, Jane Tanner thinks about checking on her children.
I think the starters were about to arrive, so I thought I'll go and do a check. It had been sort of 20 minutes or so before we'd last checked, so I thought I'll go and do a check before the food arrives. So I just walked out of the restaurant up the hill. I passed Jerry. He was talking to one of his tennis friends at the time, and then after I'd passed Jerry, at the top of the road, I just saw somebody walking across the top of the road, so I was a reasonable distance away from them. And that person was carrying a child.
And you say a person, male or female?
Oh, a male.
And just describe that individual to us.
It's about probably 5'8" tall. He was taller than me, but not 6 foot, and so between those two. He was wearing quite a lot of clothes, and that's one thing in hindsight, again, I think was quite odd, because tourists, when they're abroad, Brits abroad would always have crop trousers or shorts or something, and he had sort of a big heavy jacket and trousers on. And the hair, the one thing that I remember a lot is the hair. It did seem to have quite a lot of dark, reasonably long to the neck hair.
Describe exactly what he's carrying, what you can see.
Well, I could tell it was a child, and I could see the feet and sort of the feet and the bottom of the pyjamas, but I just thought, that child's not got any shoes on. You could see the feet, and it was quite a cold night in Portugal in May. It's not actually that warm. I know I'd got a big jumper on, and I remember thinking, oh, that parent's not a particularly good parent. They've not wrapped them up.
And could you tell whether it was a boy or a girl?
Only because the pyjamas had a pinky aspect to them, so you'd presume a girl. It was actually quite cold.
In your sketch, he appears to be carrying the child in a sort of unusual way.
Yeah, I was carrying sort of across the body like that. I suppose in hindsight you'd probably think somebody would carry them more against the shoulder.
And I have to ask you this, are you absolutely sure of what you saw? Because it was a long time ago, and it was only for a brief period.
A brief period, but at the time I knew what I'd seen. I'd gave that information to the police, and because of the pyjamas I'm absolutely convinced that is what I saw.
And how do you think that you could have opportunity to get into the apartment if you were checking on the children every 15 minutes?
How often did you say we were checking?
15 minutes? No?
That's not what we've said, you know, and it's been widely reported that it was about 30 minutes. Now, that was what our checks were. Clearly, different people were going at different times.
Carrying the child in a sort of unusual way.
Yeah, I was carrying sort of across the body like that. I suppose in hindsight you probably think somebody would carry them more against the shoulder.